I'm Don Fry, President and CEO of the Greater Baltimore Committee, and welcome to GBC Insider, a program designed to hear from reporters, leaders in the private sector, and elected officials to gain insights on key issues in business and government. Today, GBC Insider is joined by Josh Kurtz, co-founder and editor of Maryland Matters, to discuss the current state of legislative issues pending in the Maryland General Assembly. Josh, thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me, Don. Great to be with you.
Just recently, the governor and the presiding officers announced an incredibly large $4 billion supplemental budget. Talk about what that meant and the next steps and its implications for Maryland.
Yeah, I think historic is probably an appropriate word. I mean, we've never seen a supplemental budget of this size ever come down. And it's all really a consequence of the big federal stimulus package that got approved by Congress, several weeks back. And so, as you said, it's almost $4 million, and it's really going to enable the state to sort of address several of the sort of economic and health crises brought on by the pandemic. It's going to enable the state to kind of, stabilize its budget for the next couple of years. And then a lot of the money is going to go for, a bunch of priorities that people have been talking about for a while. $300 million to expand broadband, $500 million for infrastructure programs, several $100 million to help reopen schools, just an array of stuff that, we thought not too long ago that budgets would be tight, and all of a sudden, it's raining cash on everybody.
Yeah, certainly unusual times for Annapolis to have that sort of cash flow coming in, to say the least.
Yeah.
Another major issue that's getting a lot of attention has been discussed even during the interim is police reform. Talk about where that stands. Obviously, the Senate's had a version and the House has had its version. Where does that stand as we come toward the end of the session?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because things are very tense right now and very day to day. The Senate actually has 9 separate police reform bills, and about 7 of them were passed very much on a bipartisan basis. The House, meanwhile, has put all its police reforms into one big bill. We're now at the stage of the session with, just about 10 days left, that the House is considering what the Senate did, the Senate's considering what the House did. I think even as we're taping this, the Senate is beginning to, debate final passage of the House bill, which has been sponsored by Speaker Adrian Jones. We think the House Judiciary Committee is eventually going to start taking up the 9 Senate bills. Assuming those all pass, the 2 chambers will have about a week to kind of come together on some kind of reform plan. And then even if they do, there's no guaranteeing that Governor Hogan is going to sign it. So we're really, there have been some tense moments already, and I think there's going to be a lot of tense moments to come and a lot of behind the scenes negotiating.
A major issue for those of us in the Baltimore region that you've heard us talk about oftentimes is the disproportionate funding that has gone toward transit. Baltimore not getting its fair share, having a $2 billion backlog of projects that need to be funded, mostly system preservation and maintenance. There has been some legislation moving forward to guarantee funding for that. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, the House and Senate are moving toward final passage of a bill that would provide an extra about $120 million a year for transit, capital projects and maintenance in the Baltimore area over 5 years. So it's $120 million a year. And here again, this only sort of scratches the surface of the area's transit needs. This will be a start, but it isn't really a projection into the future. And while I think the bills will both get through both chambers, again, it's a question of whether Governor Hogan is going to sign them, and then what happens.
Josh, we have a little bit, about a minute left. Talk a little bit about, you've been a veteran of the legislation for years, covering it. Talk a little bit about your reflections of the General Assembly session this year, maybe some of the big issues that have been addressed or haven't been addressed. And certainly it's been a session like no others with the virtuality of it.
Yeah, I think that's, when when they write the history of this session, a lot of significant things did happen, but the way it happened and the conditions under which everyone has worked has just been so different. And, nobody, there's always a lot of hard work in a session, but there's always kind of fun and some joy and serendipity in a session. And there's really been none of that this time. This time there's just been the hard work. There have been some reforms in the way session is operated that I think a lot of folks hope they'll keep, whether it's, live streaming of floor sessions, whether it's, publicizing committee voting sessions ahead of time in ways that haven't happened before. But I mean, it's been a really tough session. I don't think anybody's having any fun, unfortunately.
Well, Josh, thank you for the valuable information that you provide us each day in Maryland Matters and for the insider insight that you provided us today on pending legislative issues. The GBC will continue to provide our members with more informational interviews with key insiders in the business and political community. Until the next edition of GBC Insider, I'm Don Fry, urging you to be safe, stay healthy, get vaccinated, and remain positive.